Last year at 62, after 3 decades as a marriage therapist, I discovered why my husband stopped reaching for me in bed, and why everything you think you know about your wife's desire after 50 is dead wrong. You know what's worse than lying in bed next to your wife of 35 years, wondering if she'll ever want you again? Being a renowned relationship therapist who can't figure out what's happening in her own marriage? That was me. After helping thousands of couples reignite their passion, I found myself in a cold bedroom with a man who'd loved me for decades, but couldn't reach me anymore. Not for lack of trying, God knows James tried, but every attempt left us both feeling worse. Him rejected, me pressured, both of us confused. Here's what nobody tells you. After menopause, a woman's desire doesn't die. It completely transforms. But since nobody talks about how it changes, millions of good men like you are using an outdated map to navigate new territory. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on what's really happening in her mind and body. Not with vague psychobabble, but with practical insights that have helped hundreds of my male clients reconnect with their wives, often more deeply than in their younger years. I'll share 3 straightforward approaches that worked not just for my clients, but saved my own marriage. No gimmicks, no embarrassing techniques, just straight talk about what actually works when everything you've always done suddenly doesn't anymore. Think about it like this. Imagine you've been driving the same route to your favorite fishing spot for 30 years. You know every turn by heart. Then suddenly, without warning, all the roads get completely redrawn. The lake's still there, but every path you've always taken now leads to a dead end. That's exactly what menopause does to a woman's desire. The destination hasn't disappeared. She still wants connection and intimacy, but the roads leading there have been completely rewired, and nobody gave either of you the updated map. I discovered this the hard way. After decades of marriage, James would reach for me using the same approaches that had always worked. Instead of feeling turned on, I'd feel this rush of anxiety. My body wouldn't respond. He'd feel rejected. I'd feel broken. Neither of us understood what was happening. The breakthrough came when I saw brain scans from a Northwestern University study comparing women's arousal patterns before and after menopause. The images were stunning. The neural pathways literally reorganized themselves. This isn't psychological, it's structural. Before menopause, desire typically comes first, then physical response follows. After menopause, this sequence completely reverses for most women. Her body needs to feel relaxation and pleasure first, before her mind registers desire. It's like trying to start a car that now has the ignition in a completely different place. That's why Tom, a 68-year-old patient of mine, was baffled when I asked about his approach to intimacy. "I do exactly what always worked before," he said. "I compliment her. I touch her the way she used to love, but now she tenses up." Tom wasn't doing anything wrong. He just didn't realize the whole system had been rewired. When I explained this neurological shift, the relief on his face was immediate. It wasn't that she didn't want him. It wasn't that he'd become unattractive. The map had changed, and they needed a new approach for new terrain. Let me tell you about the night things finally changed between James and me, because it wasn't what either of us expected. We were sitting on the porch after dinner. Instead of my usual "how was work," followed by his standard "fine," I asked him something different. "What's been weighing on you that we haven't talked about?" He looked surprised, then mentioned concerns about our son I'd known nothing about. I didn't jump in with solutions. I just nodded and reflected back what I heard. "Sounds like you're worried he's repeating some of your mistakes." He looked directly at me, his expression softening. We talked like that for maybe 30 minutes. Nothing revolutionary, just genuine interest and presence. Later that night, something shifted. For the first time in months, I felt that familiar warmth toward him, not because he'd approached me differently, but because we'd connected differently. I call this first approach the 30-minute miracle, because it creates a specific neurological pathway that's essential for female desire after menopause. Here's what's happening in her brain. After hormonal shifts, the connection between her emotional centers and sexual response areas becomes much stronger. Her emotional brain must activate before her sexual brain can engage. This isn't about having a generally good relationship. It's about creating a specific type of connection that serves as a neurological runway for desire to take flight. Here's how to make this work tonight. Set aside 30 minutes with no distractions, no TV, no phones, no grandkids' photos to sort through. This isn't foreplay, it's pre-foreplay, creating readiness that may bear fruit hours or even days later. The key is how you listen. Most of us listen to gather information or solve problems. For this approach, you need to listen for feelings and reflect them back. When she mentions her friend's health scare, don't just say, "Is she going to be okay?" Try, "That must have been frightening to hear about Susan. Are you worried about her?" This reflection activates mirror neurons that create a powerful sense of being understood at a deep level. This triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, which is absolutely essential for female arousal after menopause. Mike, a 72-year-old Vietnam vet and former construction worker, rolled his eyes when I suggested this approach. "Doc, I've been asking about her day for 50 years, he said. But he agreed to try the reflection technique for 1 week. When he returned, his gruff exterior had softened. "I don't get it," he said, "but something's different. She reached for my hand in the car yesterday, hasn't done that in years." The bottom line, after menopause, the shortest distance to physical intimacy isn't physical at all. It runs through this specific kind of emotional connection, not because women need more romance, because their brains are literally rewired to require this pathway.
I was standing in our kitchen one Sunday morning, waiting for the coffee to brew. James was at the table reading. I walked by and let my hand trail across his shoulders as I passed, lingering just a moment longer than a casual touch. He glanced up, smiled, then went back to reading. That night, I asked him, "Did you notice I was interested this morning?" He looked completely baffled. Interested in what? For decades, our signals had been unmistakable. But after menopause, my way of expressing interest had changed so dramatically that we were having entire conversations only one of us recognized. This brings us to the second approach, learning to recognize her new signals. Here's what's happening physiologically. The hormonal shift of menopause reduces testosterone. Yes, women have it too, which drives direct sexual initiation. This creates a more subtle, context-sensitive expression of desire that most men completely miss. Think of it like switching from English to French without realizing it. She's still communicating interest, just in a language you don't yet understand. Here's your translator for this new language. Watch for these signals. She finds reasons to be physically near you without a practical purpose, standing closer than necessary in the kitchen, choosing to sit beside you when other seats are available. She touches your arm, shoulder, or back briefly, but lets the contact linger slightly longer than a purely practical touch would. These touches feel ambiguous because they're meant to be invitations rather than demands. During ordinary conversations, she maintains eye contact longer than the topic requires. This engagement signals openness to connection beyond the conversation itself. Her voice shifts to a softer or more melodic quality, especially during routine exchanges. This vocal change often indicates relaxation, a prerequisite for arousal. Frank, a 65-year-old retired engineer, was stunned after completing the observation exercise I'm about to teach you. "She was giving me signals almost every morning," he told me. For years, I'd been waiting for her to be direct like when we were younger, while completely missing these new cues. Here's how to crack this code. For 1 week, simply notice these subtle behaviors without immediately acting on them. Keep a mental note of when they occur and in what context. Look for patterns in timing and situation. What most men discover is shocking. She hasn't stopped communicating interest. She's been speaking a different language you haven't learned to recognize. When you begin responding to these actual signals, rather than waiting for the direct approaches from your younger years, she feels truly seen. The neurological payoff is significant. When you recognize and respond to her subtle cues, you activate mirror neuron systems that create powerful feelings of being understood. This creates safety that allows desire to emerge. After understanding this pattern, James began noticing when I'd linger near him or let my touch stay a moment longer. Rather than immediately escalating to sexual touch, he'd simply turn toward me, maintaining the connection. That recognition created more intimacy than any direct approach could have.
We haven't had sex in 14 months. I know she still loves me, but she just doesn't want me to touch her anymore. This heartbreaking statement from Richard, a 70-year-old client, captures what so many men feel. But what if the issue isn't whether she wants touch, but how that touch begins? This brings us to the third approach, which completely reverses everything you thought you knew about desire. Most of us grew up understanding sexual response as a straightforward sequence. Desire leads to arousal, leads to response. But groundbreaking research revealed that after menopause, this sequence fundamentally changes. For most women after menopause, the sequence becomes willingness leads to arousal, which then creates desire. This isn't a minor adjustment, it's a complete reversal of the process. I discovered this through a moment of vulnerability with James. One evening I said, "I miss feeling close to you physically, but I don't feel desire until after we've already started. Could we just hold each other without expectations and see what happens?" That honest conversation changed everything. Here's how to apply this insight. Create a 20-minute connection time focused entirely on comfort with zero pressure for any particular outcome. The key is creating a space where arousal can emerge naturally, which then may kindle desire. Start with these exact words. "I'd love to spend some time just being close to you, with no expectations. Would that feel good tonight?" This creates safety for her nervous system, essential for the arousal that now precedes desire rather than following it. Begin with non-sexual touch, whatever creates comfort without sexual demands. The science is clear. For women with responsive desire, arousal begins in peripheral areas and moves inward, the opposite pattern from when you were younger. Richard tried this approach with his wife of 45 years. "We'd been stuck in a pattern where any affection meant I wanted sex right then," he told me. This framework let us enjoy being close without pressure. The irony? By removing expectations, we're actually intimate more often now than when I was pushing for it. Here's why this works. Pressure activates the fight-or-flight response, which shuts down female arousal. Removing pressure activates the relaxation response, which allows arousal to build naturally. After menopause, this physiological reality becomes even more pronounced. Once I understood this framework, something my client Robert said finally made sense. Initiating sex feels like asking someone to dance who can't hear the music yet. The solution isn't to ask more insistently. It's to create conditions where she can hear the music first. There's an uncomfortable truth that most couples never discuss. The physical changes of menopause can make previously pleasurable touch uncomfortable or even painful. This isn't about decreased desire, it's about physical comfort as the foundation for any pleasure. Let me share something personal. After months of rebuilding our connection, James and I hit another wall. Despite emotional closeness and clear interest signals, physical intimacy became uncomfortable for me. I found myself pulling away again, and our old pattern of rejection and hurt resurfaced. Finally, I gathered my courage and explained the physical changes, tissue thinning, decreased natural lubrication, that were making intimacy uncomfortable despite my emotional interest. His response surprised me. "Why didn't you say something sooner? We can work with this." That conversation led to simple adjustments that restored physical comfort, allowing desire to flourish again. Here's the startling fact. A Mayo Clinic study found that 60% of women experience these physical changes, but only 20% discuss them with partners or doctors. This silence creates unnecessary suffering and disconnection. The practical approach is straightforward. Create conditions that prioritize physical comfort as the foundation for pleasure. This includes practical considerations like appropriate lubricants available at any drugstore, allowing more time for arousal, blood flow increases more slowly after menopause, and possibly adjusting timing. Many women find mornings better than evenings. Initiate this conversation simply. "I want our closeness to feel good for both of us. Would you be open to trying some things that might make everything more comfortable and enjoyable?" Frame it as enhancing pleasure rather than fixing a problem. My client Stephen, a 69-year-old retired police officer, attended his wife's gynecology appointment to learn about menopause. "It completely changed my understanding," he told me. "These changes weren't about me at all, they're physical realities. Finding solutions together made it our shared journey instead of her problem." Physical comfort isn't separate from desire. It's what makes desire physically expressible. Addressing these practical considerations demonstrates that your priority is mutual pleasure, not just your own needs. The million-dollar question men ask me is always the same. Which approach works best? The answer is simple. It's not about choosing one. It's about integrating all three to create a completely new roadmap for intimacy after 50. Think of it as a sequence. The 30-minute miracle creates neurological readiness. Learning her new signals helps you recognize invitations. The backwards approach guides how you respond to those invitations. Meanwhile, addressing physical comfort ensures that when desire emerges, pleasure follows. Here's how this integrated approach transformed my own marriage. We began with regular connection talks, using emotional reflection, creating neurological readiness. James learned to recognize my new signals, the lingering touch, sitting closer than necessary, sustained eye contact. When responding to these cues, we used the responsive desire framework, beginning with comfort-focused connection without expectations. Throughout this process, we openly addressed physical comfort, making small adjustments that made a huge difference. The result? At 62, we're experiencing intimacy that's different from our younger years, less urgent but more present, less performance-focused but more deeply connected. As James put it, in our 30s, it was about release. Now it's about connection. I wouldn't go back if I could. Research confirms this isn't unusual. Dr. Gottman's studies found that couples who successfully navigate these changes often report higher satisfaction than at any previous point in their relationship. The fundamental shift. When you understand these changes as natural evolution rather than dysfunction, everything changes. She no longer feels deficient or pressured, and you no longer feel rejected or inadequate. This perspective shift creates immediate relief and opens the door to new possibilities. Before we wrap up, Let me give you one specific action to take tonight that can begin shifting your connection immediately. Create your first 30-minute miracle session. Choose a time with minimal distractions. Sit somewhere comfortable where you can see each other's eyes. Then ask her this question. What's been on your mind lately that we haven't really talked about? When she responds, practice reflection. It sounds like you're feeling. Or, so what I'm hearing is, resist the urge to problem solve or relate it to your own experience. Just reflect what you hear and ask follow-up questions about how she feels. This simple practice activates the exact neural pathways that connect emotional processing to desire potential. It won't create instant desire. That's not how the new roadmap works. But it begins laying the neurological foundation for desire to emerge in its own time. As my client David, a 75-year-old retired judge, told me after trying this approach, for years, I tried every which way to solve the problem of my wife not wanting intimacy. Turns out, trying to solve it was part of the problem. When I focused instead on just understanding her, everything started to change. Remember, understanding her desires after 50 isn't about recapturing youth. It's about discovering a deeper connection that only mature relationships can achieve. This new chapter can be the most fulfilling one yet if you're willing to learn the new language of desire after 50.